to Strength in Numbers, the podcast where we show you that together we can overcome any obstacle. Join us as we bring on world-renowned experts in the field of grit, determination, and perseverance. Lean on us for a prosperous future together. Here's your hosts, Colonel Tim Nye and Neal Keohane.
All right, welcome to Strength in Numbers. My name is Colonel Retired Tim Nye, and I am joined today, as I always am, by our primary host and founder of Strength in Numbers, Mr. Patriot himself, Neal Keohane. Today we are speaking with an American warrior and hero, former Navy SEAL, Monty Heath. Monty served 11 years as a SEAL before successfully transitioning to the civilian world, where he's become, among other things, an entrepreneur and an executive director of a nonprofit called VETtoCEO. Monty also hosts his own popular podcast, aptly titled The Full Monty. So as you can imagine, we will cover some familiar territory, talking about grit, resiliency, leadership, teamwork required to become a SEAL, but we'll also talk a lot about his transition and the broader scope of helping his fellow warriors make the leap from vet to CEO and just what it takes to accomplish that. But before we get started, we want to take a minute and remind you that every subscription and every share helps support veterans across our nation. Whether you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscription button and know that you are making a difference in the life of a veteran. So with that, Monty, welcome to Strength in Numbers. It's great to have you here.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on board. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man.
So, Monty, I don't know, as a little bit, I talked about you a little bit there, but I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about. So why don't you just give us kind of an overview of who you are and how you got here?
All right. Grew up in New England. Very strange family. My dad was 28 years older than my mother. Had me at 50, had my little sister at 56.
Wow.
The point of saying that is I didn't get played with much, which is why I like toys now, and I like to do wheelies, and I like to peel out, and it's never going to get old. There was some military in my family, but it didn't really mean much to me. I wouldn't say that I was patriotic when I was, 16 years old signing up for the Navy. I think I had more selfish reasons. I think the patriotism and the sense of duty and service and all that came later. I certainly didn't have that as a 16 or 18-year-old, but got into the Navy, went right into the SEAL teams, had a contract called the Delayed Entry Program, which was so I could get in earlier, but also the Dive Fire Program, which meant that I had orders to SEAL training. I just had to jump through some hoops and pass some tests to get there. Got there when I was 18. Made it through BUDS. Didn't make it straight through. BUDS is 6 months, but I failed some things, and it took me a year to get through. They actually could have shit-canned me if they wanted to, but they kept me around, which is good. This is all pre-war stuff. Got out to the East Coast, was a medic, went to 18 Delta, short course, medic school down in Fort Sam Houston before they moved it to Fort Bragg. And then got over to Bosnia. My first deployment was to Bosnia, and we were taking persons indicted for war crimes, PIFWICs, up to The Hague to stand crimes against humanity. And but the bad guys were getting dropped off to us, and then we would fly them in a C-130 up north. And I was like, well, this is fun and all, but who are the guys that are getting those bad guys? And they were like, oh, well, that's another SEAL team. That's Naval Special Warfare Development Group. And I was like, whoa, well, I need to go there. So you got to do 5 years in a normal team to get over there. I put my package in, got accepted, and was in their green team, their selection process when the towers fell. So we knew we were going to war. One set of guys went over there first. I got over there second, and then did winter deployments of 02, 3, and 4. And then right before I got out, my team leader was like, hey, I know you're getting out in a month or so, but you want to go back over to Bosnia? And I was like, yes, I do. So I get over to Bosnia, and we got to hunt this PIFWIC from soup to nuts. So we watched this guy for like 3 weeks, knew what he took in his coffee, where he had his breakfast, how he liked his eggs. And we got the go-ahead to snatch him. And this real fine character, had raped over 200 women and killed 100 people. And I got to rip him out of his house, and I was the primary prisoner handler, which meant I got to be on him and everybody else had my back. And I wrapped him up, took him out of his house, and got out of the Navy 2 weeks later, complete. All my goals were complete, full wrap up, full circle, time to get out, have some kids, get married. So that's what I did. Kids, married, defense contracting, executive protection. And then the last 6 years I've been with veterans and helping nonprofits with veterans in a couple ways. I was with Higher Ground, an amazing organization that treats people with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries, and military sexual trauma. And then completely separately, I was with VETtoCEO and still am with VETtoCEO, and they teach entrepreneurship skills to veterans. So that's me in a nutshell. I don't know where you want me to go deeper or what to expand upon.
No, listen, that's quite a bit, but I do have a couple questions here because as you kind of ran through your career. So when you went over to Bosnia the first time, when was that? What year? That
would have been 97.
Okay, all right. I was there tail end of 95 into 96, and it's funny when you talk about, I had been a Ranger platoon leader by that time and an infantry company commander and all that, and now I'm on a staff in NATO headquarters, and I'm watching kind of the same thing. I'm watching these guys get grabbed up, and I'm asking questions, and I was basically told to shut up. You don't ask those questions. I'm like, but it's obvious that we're grabbing these guys. No, it was like, you're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to even think about it. Like, all right, whatever. You'd have to be an idiot not to know what's going on here, but okay. Right. And then, so when you went over and you put the habeas grab ass on the guy there, what year was that?
That was 04. That was the spring of 04.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. I went back. I was at JSOC. Again, still as a staff officer in the 3 shop, but we went over to get somebody. The same thing. They followed him for weeks. He came to a river. I wanted, well, I shouldn't say who I think it was. And the guy got to the river and basically had to cross this little bridge, and his protection detail kind of got out, looked around. For whatever reason, they got back in the car and went the other direction.
Oh, they bolted.
They did, and so there I was on the headphones listening to the whole thing, and a guy named Bill Wilson went on to be, he was a captain, SEAL. I think he made an admiral. I don't know. Anyway, he was in charge of the show. I remember how disappointed he was that night because that was going to be the big grab.
Hey, I won't say the officer's name because he broke an order. But here's what happened on that night that we took him. We had a ridiculous rule of engagement, ROE, that said, this guy's having a party, and if he's outside of his house, you can snatch him. But if he goes inside the house, you have to abort. So we literally roll up with our vans, and as we're pulling into his driveway, and this is still pretty, nondescript, like he doesn't know we're coming or what this van is full of. Anyway, he goes in his house, and we're all like, oh, but the officer in charge was like, no, we're going anyway. Go. Like, yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Monty, first of all, thank you for your service and your continued service. And what a way to kind of cap your military career by taking a really, really bad, evil human being off this planet. So, or in jail, wherever he is right now. But I hope he's, I hope this is going to come across bad, but I hope he's suffering an awful lot right now. So, but thank you. Why don't we? So let me back up a little bit. I worked with a nonprofit for 18 years for special operations guys, soft guys, and we helped widows or survivors of the fallen. So I've gotten to know quite a few guys through friends of the survivors, and it seems like there's a common thread. It's highly competitive, obviously, no matter what branch you're in, Army, Navy, Marines, or Air Force. But a lot of you guys come from difficult family backgrounds. I haven't met I really haven't met a guy from an idyllic white picket fence background who comes in and excels. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the struggles you went through as a younger guy or younger kid, and what brought you into, I want to excel and be the best of the best and take out bad guys?
Yeah. First, I want to agree with what you said, but there's definitely exceptions, and I have found them. There's definitely people, whether it be SEALs or SF or Delta or whatever it is, that did have a June and Beaver, Cleaver upbringing and then went into special forces, but they're definitely the minority. I think the majority is folks that wanted to get the heck out of town.
Right.
And, when I turned 18, I've never asked for a dime from my family. I left and I've never looked back. There was nothing there for me. Small town, it's just nothing there for me. I wasn't, I hated school. I didn't think I was learning anything worthwhile. I don't like following rules just for rules' sake if they don't make sense to me personally. I hated authority. That's pretty surprising going into the military, but I needed it. I hated it, but I needed it. I hated structure, but I needed it.
Right.
I had no plan B. So I didn't know what I wanted to do until I saw that movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen, probably the worst Navy SEAL movie out there.
Right.
I still own the cassette tape, the VHS cassette tape.
Awesome.
But it was that sense of, sort of maverick. Yes, you're under authority and you're under this DoD system, but you're also sort of on your own and you can do your own things and you're principle based and not rules based, and all those things spoke to me. And plus, you get to blow stuff up and shoot guns and jump out of airplanes and scuba dive and all that. So that was my motivation. That movie, I saw that and I knew that that's exactly what I wanted to do. No plan B. I didn't even know what a growth mindset was back then, but I had a growth mindset. I mean, I started to think of myself as a SEAL that just hasn't gone through the steps yet. Like I always thought I was going to make it through. My Navy recruiter couldn't tell me anything about SEAL training. He never put anybody to SEAL training before from Keene, New Hampshire. So I showed up, sort of unaware of what was going to take place, but it didn't seem to matter. I didn't care. I was going to make it through, period.
Right. And then when you said, correct me if I got the terminology wrong, but were you rolled back in BUD/S? Did you have an injury, or did you just not complete a task in time, or something like that? Or
the latter. I failed things. I failed 3 things, 2 of which I deserve to fail. The third one I still haven't quite figured out yet. I'll start with that. That's the easy one. So for my class 198 class up test, you have to do like 50 or 55 push-ups in 2 minutes. And I actually did the most push-ups I ever did in my life in 2 minutes. I got 126 push-ups in 2 minutes. And the instructor was like, none of those counted. You failed. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And I met the guy and I've talked to him and I was like, dude, do you remember me? Why did you do that? He's like, I don't remember you, man. I don't remember that. I'm like, ugh.
Oh God.
Anyway, that was 3 months right there. But the other 2 things that I deserved to fail was drown proofing. So I failed that. That's where you tie your feet together, your hands behind your back, go in the pool. And I failed the last portion of it, which is you got to go down underwater and grab your mask with your teeth, get your feet situated and push off and come back up to air. Well, I went down there and it took me a while to get my teeth on the mask. And then I shot off at an angle. So I shot off at an angle and all my momentum kind of stopped and I didn't make it to the surface to air. And I was like, oh God, like the only way you can get back up there is to let out even more air, go down. And I don't know, it was just a mess. I failed that. And then the second thing was after Hell Week in second phase is pool comp. And that's where they put your dive equipment on with the old school rubber hoses that can actually be tied in knots, and they tie your stuff in knots and you got to get it out in a certain procedure. And if you don't follow the procedures, you fail. Well, I failed that too. And that was, I was a scuba diver. I already got scuba qualified when I was 16, years before the Navy. So I thought I was on the swim team. I thought I was very comfortable in the water. But, you have to be really comfortable in the water. Kind of,
I bet.
Next level stuff.
Monty, do you think that might have been the problem, that you were qualified already and you were, like you said, a little too comfortable, that you weren't following the instructions because you thought you knew it?
Maybe. Mixed with there's panic involved when you don't have air. So as good as you are, as calm as you are, when you're underwater and you don't have air, there tends to be some panic, and that's not okay. It's not okay to panic. And those guys go away, and I failed. Like, I had to get my shit together and get rolled and practice more to get it right. And then, become utterly calm underwater, which is what's needed, because panicking will get you or somebody else killed.
Yeah. I asked that question for a very selfish reason. My son just took a dive team slot, SF dive team slot. He's dove most of his life. He was lucky. I was stationed in Hawaii when he was a young boy, and then he was stationed in Hawaii. So he's done a lot of diving, and he was on the demonstration swim team at West Point, where they would tie your hands and, same thing. You jump in the pool and you go down and pick up bricks with your teeth or whatever. But I told him, hey, you gotta train up for this, and he was like, hey, I'll be fine. And in my head, I'm thinking, you better take this seriously.
Yeah. Has he done it? Is he doing it now, or?
No, it's coming up.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly when, but and like most guys in this world, he pretty much does accomplish what he says he's going to do. So there, but I do want him to be a little bit more. And I think we might have had this conversation before. In my head, the reason I play that back was I had been a Marine sergeant when I joined the Army, went to OCS, and then they sent me off to Ranger School. I didn't pay one moment's worth of attention to any instruction about Ranger School. every afternoon, every weekend, there's extra training, and they tell you got to do this, you got to do that. And I kept saying, I'm a Marine sergeant. How freaking hard could this be? I mean, it just doesn't. I cannot believe that this is hard. I've already done everything that's hard. And like 2 weeks into the school, I'm sitting under a tree, almost in tears, crying. What the hell have I gotten myself involved with here? I just, being prepared is key, obviously.
There's definitely some gray area of confidence, competence, and maybe it runs over into complacency, right? So confidence and competence are amazing. But if you sit with it too long and don't stay hungry, you can fall into complacency.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me for sure.
Yeah. So, Monty, I'm just going to go back a little bit. A lot of our viewers and listeners aren't military. And what happened to you in the pool with them tying up the hoses and making you panic and being in that really uncomfortable place, because what you did for a living, you were pretty much always uncomfortable, and you had to get used to being uncomfortable, I guess. So exactly. Was there a term? I think I know it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but is there a term of those guys kind of beating you up under the water and tying your hose up and trying to make you fail?
What's the term? I'm interested.
Well, I heard it was called sharking. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There you go.
They swim around you like a bunch of sharks, and you're down underwater, and you're crawling along the bottom, and they come down and rip your mask off and your fins off, and it's progressively gets more and more difficult. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about I could get into your military career forever, but I think for our audience, especially since we've set a baseline up of you did fail, you came back, and you proved yourself that not anybody, but most people can come back from failure if your mental capacity is there and come on to succeed, which you succeeded. I mean, you went to what's called a Tier 1 unit, which is the best of the best in the military, the U.S. military, maybe the world. So
there's no maybe.
Yeah. Well, there's an Army counterpart, so I'm not trying to piss some people off, Colonel, but yes, it's the best in the world. Sorry, Monty. And so you get to the pinnacle, really, and you leave the military with a guy that you wanted to get for years. You go back and do that. Now you're in civilian life. What is that like, coming back from literally war and violence and mayhem into coming back into family life, or mom and dad or friends, and then trying to get a regular job?
Yeah, strange, very strange. I can say my transition was very, very easy at the beginning, but got harder and harder as it went along, which is kind of backwards as to what you might think. And the reason for that is I got out of the military, and immediately started a company with another SEAL, a PJ, a Marine, and another Air Force dude, or another Marine dude. So I was around the same type of people. That didn't work out. We had some issues. We learned a lot. By the way, failure, you mentioned failure earlier. Failure is not the end. Failure is the beginning, right? That's where you start to reevaluate and learn and improve and evolve. But anyway, so I went from that to a defense contracting company that was owned by SEALs, or owned by a SEAL, populated by SEALs, all SF people and Spec War and SWAT officers and all that. So the culture was damn near exactly the same. Did that for years. And then, was doing executive protection in a SEAL-run company and SEAL employees. And then it wasn't until I got out west, and this was about 6 years ago, that things really started to change for me. And I'd say my transition got worse. But I don't know how much of it was rubbing off on me, because I was working with these folks that were suicidal veterans, real deep PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. And that's what I did for 6 years. And working with those people actually sort of accelerated my transition, or brought me to the realization of my transition, which is difficult. It's difficult, like you said, going from kind of the pinnacle to Joe Blow. Like, who are you again? Like, you're not relevant. You're
Right.
going from super cool, super badass, super relevant to just a number, and that's pretty hard. I don't know if I answered your question, but
You did, yeah, you're spot on. Monty, I don't know you well, but I don't think anybody listening or watching is going to think you're just a number. There are people out there who just are numbers, and Colonel and I and myself, every week we try to tell people they're not numbers, that they have within them, whether they know it or not, they have the capacity to be better every day. And that might be meaning just taking a step off the couch and walking outside, coming back. But if you try to progress every day, you can be better, and you won't be a number. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I believe that 100%. And I think everything is upgradable. I think everything is changeable. I think you can absolutely build grit, build discipline, build leadership, build all these things that maybe you weren't born with. But it's all, you can do it. Like, how do you get up and work out every morning? Well, you get up and work out every morning.
That's right.
How do you become a marathon runner? Well, you run 1 mile, and then 2, and then 5, then 10, 12, 15, 18, 20. I mean, it's just like, one step at a time. You can do it. Or you can assume the victimhood mentality, and the whole world's out to get you, and you've been dealt a bad hand, and this sucks, and that sucks, and everything sucks, and you're trapped in that negative mindset. And no, you're not going to get any better. You've got to want it, and you've got to put forth the effort to change.
Yeah, right. Colonel, were you going to say something?
No. Monty, Neal, you got to get off the screen so I can look at that. I don't know how you do that. But, Monty, what's the sign behind your head? Your head is blocking out part of that sign. What is no one is what I'm guessing it says coming, is that correct?
Yeah, no one is coming. It's up to us. That's 30 seconds out. A buddy of mine, Sean Evangelista, he's also from the same command, started that company. It's a apparel company, and he's artistic, and that's from Benghazi. The idea, the guys are on the rooftop and the whole frickin' town is swarming them, and they're asking for help, and no one's coming. Like, they were on their own. And the ambassador died, a couple SEALs died, other people died, stuff torched. And, the point of that is it's up to us. We can't hope for people to come and save us. We got to do it ourselves.
That's right. Yeah, hope is not a plan, right?
No. Hope keeps you alive. Like, I don't want to trash hope. Like, if you look at POWs, like, Vietnam POWs, hope is what kept them alive. When people lost hope, they died. So I don't want to trash hope, but no, it's not a strategy.
Right. And that is Thor's hammer behind you, right?
I don't know what that is. I'll have to ask Sean.
Yeah, Sean. I'm pretty sure that's Thor's hammer, which I love. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's
Mullen something.
Molinar or something. Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah. So
do you have that tattooed on you?
I don't have that, Colonel, because that would be a badass tattoo. But I have a few that are Gaelic and Irish and Viking, but they're all hidden. So I don't know if I have the balls to put Thor's hammer on me. So anyways, Monty, I think why don't we? So you were out in the West Coast. You were kind of in a bad deal around great guys, but in negative thought process of Jesus. I mean, thinking about killing themselves and PTSD, and that is just a bad vibe to be around. Colonel Nye and I, we talk an awful lot, and we try to educate our viewers and our listeners that we wind you guys up, the country does, to do one of two things, either kill someone or capture them. That's about it. And then you're on that pace, that cadence for months, if not years, of your life. You sacrifice family time, you sacrifice alone time, you sacrifice everything for us. So, we can have this podcast today to hopefully educate some people, which is amazing. So thank you. But you did transition. You end up in the East Coast. Tell us what brought you back to the East Coast, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the number of things you're doing now?
Yeah. I'm just going to go back a couple seconds. You mentioned bad vibe. I would agree that it's definitely a bad vibe if the people don't have the right mindset. You can be suicidal and have PTSD. By the way, the PTSD doesn't matter if it's from your childhood or it's from combat stuff. Almost, I'd say 100% of the people that I have spoken to had childhood trauma. Yeah. And the combat stuff just kind of sprinkled and layered on top. That's a whole different conversation. Right. Anyway, the only way I would say it's a bad vibe is if they're not willing to change or don't want to change and kind of just have that victimhood mentality.
Agreed.
And the other thing I'd say is my love for humanity started out there. I didn't give a crap about humanity until about 6 years ago. And it started I was a ski bum. I was making a bunch of money running this eco resort that was seasonal. And I was a ski bum. So I volunteered my time with Special Olympics skiing as a ski instructor. And that was my hook to humanity. I never, all my friends were cool guys, SEALs, and good at this and good at that and physical specimens and blah, blah, blah. But what does that have to do with somebody that's Down syndrome? Or what does that have to do with somebody with cerebral palsy or cognitive issues or quadriplegics or whatever, more on the not Special Olympics, but Paralympics, both of them. Anyway, the point is I gained some humanity there. I gained some humility and humanity that I didn't have before. So I was doing that, and then my why did I come back to the East Coast? My in-laws successfully petitioned to get their grandkids back here. We'd been gone for 5 years out in Idaho, so we got back to the East Coast, and now I'm doing all sorts of things again. One of the main things I'm doing is running a podcast for VETtoCEO. That's kind of been my besides my personal business, my nonprofit that I've really been pouring my time into. Yep. And VETtoCEO is an amazing organization, VETtoCEO.org. They spend their money really, really well. They've been around for 7 or 8 years. And then they teach entrepreneurship skills to veterans for free. And we have a 5-week online course. We have veteran guest speakers come on every week. If you can make it live, that's great because you can ask live questions. If you cannot make it live, that's fine too. You get sent a link with the audio and video. And we've been focusing big time on funding, right? Because you can have the best ideas on the planet, but if you can't get it funded, it's not going anywhere. Right. And a lot of folks don't know about funding and don't know about the different types of funding. So, for example, one of the founders of VETtoCEO, Mike Horn, he actually purchased a business. So, by the way, having a startup is not the only way to have a business, as much as we're brainwashed to think. He purchased a fully functioning business from the owner, and owner financed it. Nice. Owner financed it based upon future profits. He didn't take a dime out of his pocket, and now he's doing about $20 million a year with the U.S. government and trucks and stuff.
That's awesome. That really is cool.
Let me just throw out one more way of funding. Crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding is a new thing, right? You used to be able to do crowdfunding and you get a t-shirt or you get a free product or whatever, and yay. But this is equity. It's the other founder of VETtoCEO, John Panaccione. He is licensed in North Carolina to do this equity crowdfunding, and he's almost ready to go national. So pretty soon you'll be able to do equity crowdfunding on a national scale and raise revenue that way, and you get to choose the terms. So as the business owner, don't think, well, if I'm going to raise money, I'm raising capital, I'm going to give up all this ownership. I'm going to give up my company. Yeah, I'll get money, but it's not going to be my company anymore. Well, You get to write those rules. You get to write how much the percent is worth per dollar amount.
Yep.
And if nobody funds you, change it, but you get to decide that. So I'll stop there.
No, that's great. I actually have a really good friend of mine, like a brother from another mother. We talked about him yesterday, Colonel, with Johnny Mack, Brian Snyder, who was I think a really, really young guy. He was probably in his mid-30s, and he was a senior managing director at Bear Stearns when they went under. Fortunately, he wasn't your typical Wall Street guy who spent every dime and then was banking on the next bonus or stock that you couldn't get for 5 or 10 years or whatever. So he saved a lot of money, paid a lot of things off, and he tried to start. I don't know if I'm going to get him in trouble, but I think it was called Equiteer. And this is about 5-6 years ago, where he was trying to start up equity crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. And he had a give back in it. He was like, I've made enough. I'm not taking anymore. I'm going to give 10, 20% back to a nonprofit or something, or help reinvest into a company. And he had some bad partners and some nefarious guys. And you'd think from Wall Street, most people are bad, but he truly was one of the shining lights in there. And so I hear what you're saying with that equity crowdfunding. It's a novel idea, and I think when someone does master it, it's going to explode, and people are going to make a lot of money and help a lot of people, not just make one guy rich. I think it's going to make a lot of people fairly comfortable or wealthy. So that's really cool. So I want to go back to a little bit about what you said about the PTSD and the victimhood, just real brief, is that, I didn't mean to pass over that, Monty, but I truly believe that people do get in dark places and they fall down. And the point, and really what this podcast is, never give up. You can't give up. And I think as long as the person who falls down doesn't give up, but there's a support network around him or her, they'll be okay. It might take some time, but I got to a point in my life where I didn't have bullets flying over my head, but I got to some dark points in my life, and I was ready to give up. And I had a buddy come, a really good friend of mine, I thank God he's still in my life, said, hey man, if you're not going to help yourself, I'm not going to keep coming over every day to check in on you. You got to put some effort into this. And that sunk to me. For whatever dark hole I was in, that resonated with me. And it's to the point where we all struggle sometimes every day. But if you're paramount on fixing yourself or making yourself better, you'll attract good people who are always going to be in your corner. And I brought that on myself now. I'm willing to help anybody, even a stranger, get better, help them up, pick them off the ground, whatever. But the second they stop helping themselves, I'm out. You can fall down 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 times, but if you're still helping yourself and you're not staying down, I'll be there until the day I die. But the people who just don't give up and they do claim the victimhood, it's really tough to latch on to someone like that. So I think never giving up is a huge point. And I didn't mean to go back in our interview, but I wanted to stress that, see that we are trying to help people on this podcast.
I just want to throw out one thing in there, and I liked everything you said. I just want to throw out this one thing. Sometimes the thoughts are subconscious, and sometimes we have no control over them. So definitely with traumatic brain injuries, even with some PTSD, I myself have suicidal ideations. I have suicidal thoughts. I have no plan and no desire, but they still pop in my head. And you're thinking like, why? Like, what? You're married, you got kids, you're successful, you got a job, you got a house, you got all these things. Like, come on, dude. Well, it happens. Yep. It's like it's an intrusive thought. Therefore, it's not by design. It's not on purpose. I didn't think it up. It just our minds think of what they want to think of, and we have to keep them on track. Like, you can't choose your next thought. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, I just want to throw that in there.
It's good. And I think, that age-old expression that goes back probably since the beginning of time is idle time is the devil's playground. Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are down have a lot of time in their hands because they're not busy. They don't have the energy to get out of bed. They don't have the energy to put one foot in front of them. And if you can stay busy, get engaged, volunteer, do something, that really can save your life, because the more you're busy, the more you keep your brain active, those thoughts can't creep into your head. You're thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do, 2 minutes from now. I went through a thing called dialectical behavior therapy, which is called DBT, and it really is kind of East meets West, and it's all about mindfulness. And maybe we do a show one time, Colonel, just on mindfulness, but I got into a guy named Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Buddhist monk from Vietnam who escaped. And I went away I was fortunate enough to see, he's still alive, he's very old, he's in his 90s, but I took a 2 or 3 week retreat with him and his monks. And a lot of times we just went out walking, and you every foot you put down, did you hear a branch snap? Did you hear a pebble crush under you? You were thinking about everything except what the fuck was in your head that was making you screw it up. So, I appreciate all that, what you said, Monty.
Yeah, you're talking about internal awareness, and the military teaches us external awareness very well. Where's the choke point? Where am I going to get shot at? Where's the high ground? Where's cover? Where's concealment? What are all these things around me that you have to keep your head on a swivel for? It's all external. What the military doesn't do is teach you internal awareness. So when you're feeling that sadness, when you're feeling that anger, that rage, whatever it is, we don't learn skills to deal with it. So going back, to the question you asked a while ago in terms of how do you transition from, war to civilian life, it's hard. And we don't get those skills. We have to get them from nonprofits. We have to get them on our own, but the military's not doing it. I think the military ought to do it. DOD does an amazing job of getting people ready for war.
Yep.
DOD then must do an amazing job of getting people ready for peace, for civilian life, in my opinion. The nonprofits out there that I've worked for, that you've worked for, they're amazing and they're awesome and they're wonderful. But how about we it starts where it starts. How about it? DOD is who creates us amazing warriors. DOD is who needs to create us amazing civilians.
Yeah, Colonel, maybe you can speak to that a little bit, because we spend months and years and decades, training these guys. I mean, it seems pretty simple. Why wouldn't they have a decompressed 6 months, 1 month program to get all these warriors back, out of war and violence and all that stuff, and kind of give them some breathing room before they're thrown into the sharks again?
Yeah, I would just say this. At no time in history, this is the best time in history, let me put it that way, to get out of the
Yeah, a lot of numbers.
All right, and I say that meaning, I got out of the Marine Corps in 1982, all right? There was nobody standing by to give me a job. There was nobody standing there to shake my hand. There was nobody there to help me figure out what I was going to do or go back to school or anything, right? And then the next time I got out is December 2013, right? There are organizations, there's nonprofits, there's corporations, there's all of these people lined up waiting to help you and waiting to give you a job. Now, giving you a job and giving you the skills are two different things completely. But there are mechanisms out there. DOD is doing better than it ever has done before. And I don't want to make it sound like here I am their protector. I'm not. But there didn't used to be any classes. Now you have these TAPs, these transition courses. It's mandatory to go to them. Maybe what you get out of it, what you put into it. I had an unbelievable transition, very smooth, as you're well aware. I kind of started working before I even got out. So I didn't go through a lot of this. And obviously, as a colonel with 32 years in, I didn't have a lot of the pressures that most people are going to have, meaning I had a wife who's, got a PhD in front of her name, so was marketable. So I didn't have the pressures of having to get out with 2 children to find a job, to get them into the right school and all of those other things. And I think it's those pressures, and then these guys run off and they basically have to grab the first job that's offered or the first thing they can find, because life gets in the way and they've got to pay these bills, right? They've got to get settled. And they don't have that time or that ability to sit back like I did and try to and kind of take it easy for a while before they figure out what they wanted to do. But there are more programs now than there's ever been. That's not to say that they can't do even better in the future.
Yeah, I agree, and a lot of that space, Monty, is done by nonprofits who stepped up to fill in that void, because there is a void, and I just hope, going forward that if we're spending, and I love it, I love that we're the strongest military in the world, and I hope we stay in that place. But I think we can afford some money on the tail end to decompress these guys and women back into life and work and everything else. So, anyways. Let's so we're skipping around here, which I think is fine. But VETtoCEO, and what's your role there, Monty?
Yeah, I'm currently the chairman of the advisory board. I was the executive director for I think 4.5 years. I found another guy to replace me so I could do some other things. He's also a colonel. His name's Rob Campbell, Ranger, good guy, speaker, author. So he's running it right now. And so I'm on the advisory board. I run the advisory board and host their podcast. So those are my current functions. That's great. So VETtoCEO, you said, is what 8 years old now? Is that what you said? Yeah, about 8 years old. Yeah.
Yep. And I assume it's virtual, like a lot of nonprofits that you have people all over the country.
It's mostly virtual. Yeah, we've always had a huge virtual signature. I'm sure you've heard of Bunker Labs. They're kind of the in-person. Yeah, we're a competition, but we play nice. We're both just trying to help veterans. And we own the online space, and we've done a bunch of webinars. We do one 5-week course per quarter, and mostly virtual.
So I'm a vet. I find out about VETtoCEO. What's the vetting process? Do I just apply and I'm in, or do you have to meet certain hurdles, or how do I get help from VETtoCEO?
Yeah, no, it's super easy. I think we just asked for a DD 214, so that's your qualifier right there, and that's it.
Retirement papers.
Say what?
Is that your retirement papers from the military? That form you just said?
Yeah, DD 214 is what you get when you get out of the military, and it talks about what you did and your medals and what your discharge is and all that. Yep. And that gets you in. You sign up for the course, and then you start getting emails about the courseware, and there's some pre-course material. There's some business plan, templates and expenses templates, spreadsheets and all those things. And you really just start to flesh out your business. And you know what else I've seen? I've seen more and more veterans go into franchising. I used to poo-poo franchising, and I stopped poo-pooing it because it makes perfect sense, right? In the military, we're trained to do X, Y, and Z. You show up with the right clothes on, with the right gear, and you do X, Y, and Z. Well, franchising is just like that. You don't have to create a brand. You don't have to create a logo. You don't have to create anything. The company you're buying into has worked in one place or 1,000 places, and all you really need to do is execute the playbook. So it's a great transition. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going with that.
No, I was just saying that it's a great transition from military to franchise. There's tons and tons of franchises. There's tons of franchises that are military friendly. You can go to vetfran.org or vetfran.com. I'm a committee member on that organization. That's like 634 veteran-friendly or veteran-ready companies that want your business and or want you to buy one of their franchises. So that's a great place to start. Vetfran.com.
I don't know. Monty, is there a what's the most common? I mean, when you talk franchise, I immediately was thinking of like gyms. What is it? McDonald's or is it health?
Everything from 2 guys in a truck to CrossFit gyms to restaurants, dry cleaning. You name it, everything. And, the only thing I would throw in there is I would ask myself, now that we're in this coronavirus pandemic, I would ask you to think about, what's life going to be like after this? Is this business I'm looking to get into dependent upon large groups of people coming together to make my money, like a movie theater? Or is this business kind of already set up for COVID and maybe it's virtual, or I don't need large groups of people to come together?
Yeah, no, I would think that this would be a tough time to get into any business. Well, not any business, but yeah. Let me ask you another quick question. Do you have VETtoCEO? Do you have a presence at any of the large conventions like AUSA or SOFIC or Global Special Operations, or do you guys come and speak at any of those?
We do some of the conventions. We've done a bunch, and we're continuing to do a bunch, but we do not have any giant collaborating partners. I think we are amazing at content delivery. We're not amazing at fundraising or collaboration. I think we've just we're down in the tactics, and our noses are in the books and in the weeds, and we're great at delivering entrepreneurship skills for businesses, but we're not great at collaborating or raising money. And you need those things to expand and serve more people.
No doubt. It's kind of like, I don't want to say ugly, but it's the unspoken kind of thing you have to do to get great services to your population. I know the nonprofit I served for 18 years, our population had no idea that, some of them had no idea we were out fundraising and trying to do these amazing things for them. And they never took it for granted, Monty, ever. They're all wonderful human beings, but it was like, well, things do cost money to do this or that. Fundraising is not fun, man. It's especially in this climate where you have the pandemic, as you said, and I like that, and I'm going to use that. But a lot of nonprofits aren't going to make it, and it's sad.
Well, we have almost 50,000 veteran service organizations in our country, and all of our hands are out asking for money. That's just the way it is. That's why I go back to, I'm not a big government guy. I don't want to get into politics, but I do want the government to fix this problem. I don't want it to be on the nonprofits, as amazing as they are. And Colonel, you mentioned getting out in the 80s. Think about the Vietnam people. They got screwed. There was nothing set up for them. Called baby killers. And they didn't have all these veteran service organizations giving them a hand up. So it's amazing, and I don't want to trash nonprofits. I love them, but that's not the answer. We got to do it within, and maybe DoD is not the answer. Maybe some other government organization is the answer. But if we're going to train people for war, we need to train people for peace.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, Monty, just very quickly. I know my last job before I got out, I was the spokesman down at Special Operations Command. So Admiral McCraven at the time was the boss, and even he struggled because of the number of nonprofits that invited him to either speak or wanted to come and meet him or whatever. And you can't, as you just said, there's 50,000 organizations out there. So how do you differentiate one from another? How do you help one without the other? It's difficult, and it puts these leaders in a tough position. Because obviously they want to, and most of the times they cannot help, especially when they're on active duty like that. But it's very difficult. It's a little bit distasteful. I know that I've helped Neal, and we go down to Tampa, and they put all the charities in a row, and we have to sit next to one another, and you're basically trying to catch the whales go by, and say, hey, look, there's a guy, there's a CEO there of Northrop Grumman or whatever. Maybe he can give us some money. But you're trying to sell them while the two people next to you are trying to do the same.
Yeah.
And their causes are every bit as good as your cause, but you're the guy trying to get that money. Anyway, I don't like it. I'll put it that way.
If not all organizations can do it, but obviously I would suggest to them, if there's any way, shape, or form, to get sustainable, whatever that is, make a product, sell it, deliver a service, sell it. Because constantly having your hand out for money is not a great strategy. Nope,
it's not, Monty. In fact, I learned, when I was a broker, I was a taker. That's all. I truly was a taker. And when I found myself, in the beginning working with Down syndrome kids, and then led me into, Colonel Nye knows this. I saw back in the late 90s, Black Hawk Down. I read the book earlier and I saw the movie, but when I saw what Shugart and Gordon did to save Durant, I was in the theaters bawling my eyes out, and I was a thick-skinned Wall Street broker. I kind of, towards the end of the 90s, was kind of thinking that there's more to life than just taking. And when it takes a while to change. And when I got to the nonprofit world, I understood that you have to make money to serve your population. But it took me getting kicked in the head a number of times that you can't go around like a Wall Street guy trying to raise money. So through really Colonel Nye introducing me to a big company called Spartan Race, he got me introduced in front of a guy named Joe DeSena, who's the founder of Spartan. He was a nice guy to me. He listened to me for 5 minutes. He only has 5 minutes every time you talk to him. But I think I got to him, and I realized it's a two-way street. If you go back to the basics, when you met your first buddy back when you were 6 or 7 years old, it's give and take. Relationships are give and take, and they're two-way streets. And I think nonprofits have to realize that if you're always taking and not giving back to the hands that feed you, it doesn't mean give them back money, but if you're not helping them somehow, then you are still taking, and it's a vicious cycle. So I kind of learned that if someone's willing to help me in life or help a nonprofit in life, you better be willing and able to be that other side of the street and be a good person, be a good human being, and if it help you, help them too. It seems pretty simple to me, but it's a concept that a lot of people don't get, right?
Yeah, well, I wasn't interested in helping other people until I was probably 35 years old or so, maybe even 38.
Yeah. It took me a while, and I know guys. I don't know them anymore, but I certainly know the names of people I knew on Wall Street who don't know their kids, don't know their wife, have they're drinking a lot, they're doing stuff behind the scenes, and they don't get it. I mean, they'll never get it at 55, 60 years old. If they haven't realized it by now, it's going to take a life-changing incident, which typically is life and death, before they understand what life should be about. And we're all on the same planet, and we should be helping each other be better. So go ahead, Colonel. I see you smiling at me.
I'm only smiling because, and again, you may have heard this before. Once upon a time in my life, I took a very in-depth psychological profile, and I'm sure Monty has done the same. And when I had to sit in front of the doc, who kind of goes over your scores, I got like a 98 on patriotism and a 99 on loyalty and all of these things. And I got like a 4 on empathy. and not only did I get a 4, I had to ask what the word was.
Yeah.
I didn't, and then I asked, hey, does that disqualify me? And he kind of looked and said, do you know what you're applying for? That's not going to disqualify you. But anyway,
right.
I thankfully changed my whole life, the rest of it. Obviously I know what it is now and but anyway.
Yeah.
Well, hey, yeah. I don't think the word empathy crossed my brain until I was like 35 or 38 years old. I really don't think I heard the word. I heard the word sympathy, and I hated I hated the word sympathy, but I didn't understand empathy until way later. And once I understood it, I still didn't understand its application until way later. And now I think it's really important. I think empathy is super important as a parent, in leadership, in business, in life, everywhere. And it's not just, what would I do if I were in their shoes? It's what would I do if I were them in their shoes? Because the first part is like, well, I would just fix it. Like, you're doing this wrong, this is this. I would fix all that in 2 seconds and we'd be on our way. No, you didn't experience what that person experienced. You haven't lived your life in that person's shoes for their entire life. So you can't just walk in there and fix it like we want to do. So
yeah, that's right. I'll share one more story with you guys. But at the peak of me being on Wall Street, I was coming out of Home Depot or something with a huge, like 20 by 40 sign, we're hiring. And I recognized it when I walked in. I mean, it's hard not to. It was a neon. I drive out of the parking lot, and there's a guy down at the end of the parking lot at the lights saying, we'll work for food. And I was working 80, 90 hours a week, and I rolled down my window, and I said, what the F are you talking about? Go up there and go get a job. They're offering jobs right now. Stop being a loser. So I was okay with that back then. And then when I went through my transformation, I've never forgotten it. That was, I bet you 18 years ago. And if I could go back and give that guy a hug, I would, because that was the wrong thing to say to that guy. He needed something else. And and empathy was it, and maybe a little direction or someone to just hear him. So that's kind of the jackass that I was, and just thank God I had people in my life to turn me around, and Colonel hates when I do this, but I have Colonel Nye in my life who puts things in perspective for me all the time, and it's about going through life and trying to make yourself better, and sometimes making that circle smaller and having people in a world lingo you want in your foxhole, and you be in their foxhole. So I think that's probably a good way to wrap this up. Monty, I just want to be able to let you speak a little bit about, I think we've covered VETtoCEO.org. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep. And then are you involved with anything else that you might want to talk about and make people aware of?
Project 1 Mile. I'm on this crazy team called Project 1 Mile. It's on social media, and it's a race across America in 2021. And this organization is also set up to kind of honor and work with individuals that are suffering in silence, PTSD, suicidal ideations, etc.
Yeah.
And we developed an 8-person team, and it's a bike race across America, and we're fixing to win it and raise awareness and raise money and get this ball rolling. In terms of awareness isn't enough. Another organization, Project Shot at Dawn, they're very suicide focused, and they have intentionality and an 8-step process and a way to fix things. So here's what I'm saying. This is the last thing I'll say is awareness is great, but what are the action steps that follow the awareness? So, 22 a day. I don't know if you're following me on social media or Facebook, but I've been doing 22 a day push-ups and stuff, and I'm on day 20. And, one of my buddies sent me a text the other day. He's like, hey, man, do you really think doing push-ups is going to help a suicidal vet to think that life is okay? And I'm like, no, not at all. I don't think that. I think suicidal people need to talk to professionals, not watch somebody do push-ups. The point of me doing this 22 a day is for all the other people out there. All the other people out there that can reach out to somebody down in the dumps and reach out to your high school buddy or your neighbor or whoever it is.
Yep.
That's a veteran that might be hurting, that could use some help, lend an ear. Let's try to stop these 20 to 22 people from killing themselves every day, day after day after day after day. So the point of that is awareness is great, but what's next?
Yep. Action. Yes, sir. Colonel?
No, I think that's well stated, because I've often wondered about the 22 push-ups a day. So I've got a whole new answer to give people now.
Are you on Facebook, Colonel?
Oh, I think we lost Colonel.
You probably know. Is he on Facebook? Probably not.
He is.
I had a phone call come in randomly.
Okay. Are you on? You're on Facebook?
Yes, I am.
Check me out. Check out Monty Heath, and I'm on day 20, and I've been not so much the videos. The videos are me doing squats and push-ups, no big deal. But the words, I think I've crafted my words well, and it's been pretty. I think most people have loved it. It's been pretty educating. So take a look at it.
Yeah, so Monty, what we do here at the end of the show is we always thank 2 people, 2 organizations. So one is a wonderful woman named Michelle Burr. I'd like to I'd like to introduce her to you. She is probably one of the most preeminent experts in nonprofits in the country. I've become friends with her over the years. I was introduced to her through one of the survivors of a Green Beret, Major Syverson. Jackie Syverson's like a sister to me, and she introduced me to Michelle Burr years ago. She helped us, the nonprofit I was with for many years. And then when we came up with this idea, she's the one in the background, bringing in guests. This was built out for nonprofits, by the way. And it's just kind of taken on a life of its own of just trying to give back, and grit, determination, and perseverance will help you get through most things in life. But without her, we wouldn't be here. So her name is Michelle Burr from In Bloom Consulting, rock star status, and just a great human being. And the other person we want to talk about is Scott Graves and Rachel Graves, his wife. Scott gave up a lucrative career in his mid-30s to give back. And he created a nonprofit called Special Ops Excursions. And it kind of goes to what you were saying about the suicidal ideation is keeping guys busy. He brings guys, active duty, soft guys, special operation force guys, to really anywhere in the world. But he does have a cabin up in Western Tennessee to hunt and to fish and to shoot the shit. It's a big living room. These guys from Delta, from Dev Group, from Rangers to MARSOC, whoever. It's an eclectic group that shows up on a weekend, and they don't have the colonel listening to them. They don't have their command sergeant major listening to them. They don't have their wife and kids there. So they really do get to decompress, shoot the shit in the living room, watch TV, watch some football. And oh, by the way, they're up at 5 a.m. shooting ducks or deer or whatever, or fishing, come back with a group family dinner, and really do some bonding. And I think that's part of helping these guys while they're still in, and give some humanity back to them, that they have some respite. So Scott Graves is truly a great patriot, because he could be making a lot of money right now, and he runs a nonprofit that is, you understand this, Monty, but I think 93 to 95 cents to the dollar goes back to programming.
That's excellent. Yeah, 75% is the goal, so he's crushing it. So he's crushing it, and he lives for this, and he's got a great wife behind him. So those are the people that we want to talk to. That's specialopsexcursions.org. If you go to our website, podcaststrength.com, his link is there, and his donation button is there, and anything you can do to help him is wonderful. Colonel Nye and myself and the team who put this together, we volunteer for this because we really truly just want to help through this shit sandwich we're dealing with the lockdown and the riots and everything else. We want to give people some hope. There you go, some hope. I said it. So Monty, you're a great man. You're a good American, great patriot, and I honestly, I'm enjoying getting to know you. And I just thank the Lord that guys like you and Colonel Nye have served this country. Well, you're most welcome. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a great day and upcoming weekend.
Strength in Numbers is produced by VETtoCEO Production. Find out how VETtoCEO can produce your next show, commercial, or podcast at www.VETtoCEOproduction.com.